Hi, good evening to all of you. Today in this session, I am coming here with a new question in this series, and this is very important for this year mains examinations 2026 in the sections ecology and environment. So let's understand first the questions. This question is related to the topic climate change. Okay, and basically I had drafted these questions based on the climate efforts by the government of India and the adaptation and mitigation efforts taken by the government of India. So let's look at the question first. What is the questions I had mentioned here? And as I have said, this is very important questions for this year. Let's look at. The question is, there are two parts in this question. One, the India's climate effort are anchored in its ambitious commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2070. So this is a statement which is given. And here what is written, is it possible without holistic approach, okay, embeds mitigation and adaptation in the growth strategy. Try to understand. The key term is the growth strategy. And we have to critically analyze this statement. So if you look at what the examiner wanted, what is the draft of the questions? That India's ambitious target is to achieve net zero emission by 2070. And but to another side, the India also wanted to be a developed economy. So we had also the target to develop the economically, okay, and the target is to become a developed economy in 2047. So now the question is, okay, is it possible without taking the adaptation and mitigation strategy? So when you are drafting this the question's answer, then what you first of all keep in mind. First of all, as I have said, the net zero emission by 2070 is the ambitious target. So first of all, you have to understand the significance of this target. Second, emission free India by 2070. Now, so we are moving towards the renewable or cleaner source of energy. And another side, we have to create a balance with the economic development. So we cannot stop the development. We are the developing economy right now. We had declared as the fourth largest economy. Okay. And now if you look at the India's economic growth, okay. So the world is looking towards the India's. Okay, India is one of the biggest market. We have the demographic dividend also. Okay, India also moving towards digitalization. So, keeping in mind all these things, okay, as you know, all these things, the economic development, prosperity, the schemes and plans, okay, the industrial development and growth needs energy. And right now we are dependent on what? The non-renewable source of energy. Basically, we are dependent on coal, that is the thermal energy. So, how India gradually shifting. So in introduction, we have to draft this. Then in body part, you have to draft ki how the India is creating a balance between moving towards the net zero emission, keeping in mind what the economic growth and development. How the India is gradually transiting towards India is transiting or transforming the energy sectors gradually, keeping in mind what the net zero emissions target, but hand in hand with what? Hand in hand with the economic development. We cannot compromise there. Okay. And then what you have to draft in your answers, basically here, you have to draft the in answers certain schemes, that is the adaptations measure as well as mitigation efforts taken by India. So you have to understand the adaptation measures in the field in different sectoral or multi-sectoral adaptation measures you have to highlight in the agriculture sector, in the sector of infrastructure development, urban development, etc., etc., as well as the mitigation efforts. What are the steps taken by the India in the recent past? Okay, so here again, that is a multi-dimensional approach taken by, so you have to highlight, okay, because in optional, it may be a long question. That's why I had mentioned here that you have to write and draft your answer in 300 words. So let's come to the mind, and after designing your body part, then you have to write the inference in which you have to sum up your answers. So I had come here with a draft answers, okay, and I'm going to discuss here how you can start with, initiate with your answers. So let's understand in introduction, as I have said, you have to briefly discuss about this ambitious target and how the India is trying to create balance with the economic growth. So what I had mentioned that long-term goal of net zero emission by 2070, okay, is entwined with the country's aspirations. So it is interlinked with and linked with what the country's aspiration for high and stable economic growth. Okay, which envisions becoming a developed nations by 2047. So now to realize this vision of net zero emission 2070 along with the uh, becoming a developed nation by 2047, okay, we have this dual challenge. One side we had taken the target to achieve net zero emission, another side we wanted to become a developed economy by 2047. So now to realizing this vision necessitate a delicate balance. Balance between what? Balance between achieving low carbon emission, that is moving towards net zero emission, okay, and robust economic growth. This is. But right now, what is the challenge? The challenge is still we depend on coal, we depend on thermal energy. Almost about 70% of the India's electricity is generated by the coal, that is the thermal, and that is not a green source of energy. It what produce the greenhouse gases. And now there is an international pressure over India, and we had taken the ambitious target also of net zero emission. So in this condition, and with continued expansions plan through new mines and extended plant life, now there is a doubt that whether we can able to move towards the different source of energy, especially the renewable or cleaner source of energy. Because right now, what is the share of the renewable source of energy? When you look at the energy capacity is almost around 200 gigawatt by the year 2024. And if we have to achieve this target of net zero emission by 2070, then we have to develop our capacity or grow our renewable capacity around 7200 gigawatt over the next 45 years. And it is again a very great, or you can say near Herculean task. It's not very easy, but India is determined to achieve the net zero emissions, okay, along with the economic development. So now how you can draft after this statement your answer. So effectively we have to navigate this dual challenge, as I have emphasized, economic growth, net zero emissions. Okay, and India is adopting holistic approach that embeds mitigation and adaptation in the growth strategy. So here I had added this part. Is it possible without holistic approach? No, it is not possible. Of course, we have to mention it. Okay, how we can navigate towards this to achieve this, okay, and to create a balance between economic growth and net zero emission, of course, by taking holistic approach, okay, that embeds both mitigation and adaptation in the growth strategy. Now we have to briefly, I had briefly discussed this, okay, what is adaptation and what is mitigation for the candidate, those who won't understand this term. There is no need to write the definition of mitigation and adaptation in the answer. Why I had quoted this part? Because sometimes student won't understand these terms. What is mitigation? Mitigation focuses on addressing the root cause of climate change. Okay, so the mitigation strategies address the root cause of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emission. So we are taking the strategies through which we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. What is adaptation? Adaptation seek to minimize the adverse impact of climate change through robust framework for resilience. So this is the differences between the term mitigation and adaptation. So what I have said that we had to navigate to cater the challenges to achieving the net zero emissions as well as the robust economic growth by adopting the mitigation as well as adaptation strategies. And India has adopted. Okay. So India, as you know, is the seventh most vulnerable country to the climate change. Okay. You might have heard about the different kind of disaster. Okay. The cyclone along the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Okay. The flood in these seasons. Okay, the melting of glacier because of the climate change, the drought, the floods. Okay, there are so many. So India is prone to disaster and the seventh most vulnerable countries, okay, to the climate change. Keeping in mind this, India's initial adaptation communications, the current aspect you have to add here, okay, submitted to the United Nations Framework Convention on the Climate Change in December 2023. When you look at what it reveals, okay, it reveals a very interesting facts that we had spent lots of money, and when you look at the expenditure on adaptation specifically in financial year 2022, it is about 5.6% of the GDP, okay, which is much more than the earlier efforts taken by the India. In 2016 financial year, it was only 3.7%. So what you are finding here that the government of India is now increasing the expenditure, okay, on the adaptation strategies. Now, according to the recent data, how much, okay, percentage of the GDP has been expended over the adaptation strategies? 5.6% by the financial year 2022. Okay, and different ministries, when you look at organizations, also took several measures, such as I had given example of Ministry of Environment, Forest and the Climate Change. Okay, I had quoted here one example. Despite there are several ministries, organizations has taken lots of adaptation strategies, mitigation efforts, okay, to achieve the ambitious target of net zero emission. I had quoted here about the steps taken by the MOEF. Okay, so MOEFCC, what it has taken, initiated the process of developing the National Adaptation Plan. You might have heard, I had already discussed in the previous lectures about NAP. And this is in addition to the initial adaptation communication submitted to the UNFCCC on the 9th December 2023. Okay, so the government having the National Adaptation Plan. So now it initiated by the Minister of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. So if you look at, and this strategy, the National Action Plan, this plan, okay, is in addition to the initial adaptation communication which we have submitted to UNFCCC in the December 2023, which highlight the country's adaptation priority, strategies, policy, and program. Okay, it means that we are very serious towards the adaptation strategies. Why? To reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, okay, and to achieve the net zero emission. Now, when you look at the challenges towards this adaptation strategies, and India is overcoming these challenges in the recent past, when you look at with their zeal, vigor, and steps taken, it shows the determination of the government of India. So now when you look at here, what I have mentioned that when you look at the financial aspect Okay, so India's adaptation strategies and mitigation efforts is largely based on domestic finance, not by the international finance. When you compare the international finance, it's quite bigger. Okay, the proportion is very small. So here I had mentioned that, okay, what despite international financial contribution is less, India through domestic finance try to adopt several adaptation and mitigation measures to achieve net zero emission, of course by 2070. So here, when you look at the financial position, India's depend largely on the domestic finance. Still, we are struggling to get, despite there was a CBDR formula. Okay, but now how we can support your statement? Of course, you have to support these statement through data. Now, when you look at estimated suggest trillions of dollar are needed. Okay, and previous NDCs pegged it 2.5 trillion 2016 to 2030. So if you look at the need of the finance, it is about 2.5 trillion to take the adaptation and mitigation strategies, okay, to implement on the grassroots level. Adaptation alone may be needed 680 billion by 2030. And as I have said, international finance contribution is less. India is largely spending their own money. Okay, and we have to look after our economic growth and development. We have to spend money on the social welfare program also, looking at our conditions. Okay, India having the one of the largest population of the world. We are the rank one countries in the populations. Okay, still the millions of people living below poverty line. So this is a challenge. So blended finance, green bonds, and clear climate finance taxonomy are vital steps already underway. So India has taken various strategy to generate the finance. Now when you look at the international flow of finance through the multilateral development banks, when you look at, okay, when you look at now the for the mitigation and adaptation, this is the expenditure on the mitigation, this is the expenditure on the adaptations. So when you look at the multilateral development bank climate finance, through which only 30.4%, okay, this is the financial flow of 2021-22 in US dollar, in the billion US dollar, 30.4 billion US dollar, okay, international support we get. Now 16.4 billion US dollar, okay, for the adaptation strategies. Through the bilateral climatic finance, how much? 19.6 billion US dollar for the mitigation, and for the adaptation 10.4 billion US dollar. And when you look at multilateral climate fund, only 1.1 billion US dollar for the mitigation strategies, and for adaptation almost zero point 0.6. Okay, so if you look at, so despite all these challenges, as I have said, how much amount of money we required, almost 2.5 trillion, and this much of the amount only we are, okay, the existing flow of money through the international route is this one. So basically India's still depend on the domestic finance base. Okay, so now looking at this scenario, okay, despite all these challenges, India has taken in the recent past several adaptation strategies. Now through this flowchart you can understand the adaptation strategies taken by the government of India. Here I had discussed the multi-pronged strategies taken by the government. Okay, let's understand. The adaptation in agriculture, if you look at, India is focused on the enhanced research and development of the climate resilient seeds. Okay, we have the vast geographical area. When we look at the agroecological zone and the climatic zone of India, we have the diverse climate, okay, an ecological zone, the the variety or of the soils and their nutrient ability is different, okay. So now to enhance the productivity in this, okay, conditions, what, because of the climate change, what we are finding, the climate resilient seeds, and for that the government is spending money on the research and development, okay. So government has set up recently a new agriculture research centers. Apart from that, the ICAR or IARI is working, and at the state level, different agricultural university are, okay, getting fund for what, developing resilient seeds. Okay, another efforts by the government of India, the measures to preserve and enhance the groundwater resources. And there are various case studies I had discussed, okay, in the chapter water resources to enhance the groundwater, okay. And apart from the water harvesting techniques, okay, as well as the drip irrigations, okay, we are utilizing to reduce the consumptions of the groundwater, okay. Now, improve soil health and modify cropping practices, and for that there is a scheme, soil health card schemes. I had already discussed. Okay, so the government has taken lots of adaptations measure in the field of agriculture. When you look at building resilience in the urban areas, the government again has taken various steps. National Mission on Sustainable Habitat. Okay, Amrut 2 claims to enhance ease of living by creating water secure city through water conservation, augmentation, and rejuvenation. So here you have to add these points when you are writing the answers. You have to quote what are the adaptation strategies the government has taken in the recent past, keeping in mind, okay, building resilience in the urban sector. So no need to explain these schemes and plans, but you have to quote here as I had quoted. And the, okay, this flowchart is not counted in the word, so you can create a flowchart, pie charts, okay, and write the information in the boxes. So here in the urban area also, now the government is promoting vertical gardens, also called living walls or the vertical greenery system. This is another step, okay, to develop the resilience in the urban sector. Regulatory framework also developed by the government, okay, the energy conservation and sustainable building code the government had developed in 2024, and the government has also developed a smart city mission and urban river management plan, URMP, and the river city alliance. So I'm not going and I'm not telling you that you explain all this, because we have to write the answer in 300 words, but you must quote what are the adaptation strategies the government has taken, okay, keeping in mind the resilient urban development in this era of climate change. Now the another, when you look at adaptation in the coastal region, okay, in the coastal area, the coastal region are prone to the climate, you can say the climate change led disasters like cyclones, and India lies in the tropical belt. And now, when you look at the frequency of cyclone has increased in the recent past. So, to overcome these challenges, planting and sustaining mangroves, okay, as well as building sea walls, artificial reefs, beach nourishment, dune planting, sand bypassing, etc. These are the mechanism which is adopted in the recent past. Government emphasized over this. The government also taken an initiative called Mangrove Initiative for Shoreline Habitats and Tangible Incomes, in short, MISTI. Okay, so mangroves, what, they absorb the shock of storms and cyclones, okay, and provide safeguard to the coastal areas. Okay, it reduce the speed of the wind. Okay, so now when you look at and the enhanced climate resilience of India's coastal communities project. Now, at the state level, you can find there are various coastal community projects run in Odisha, in Bengal, okay, in Andhra, in the coastal Andhra, in Tamil Nadu, Goa. Okay, you can find lots of case study over this. Now, when you look at adaptation action for the water management, because of the climate change, what you are finding that out of all these states, almost in 17 states, there is a scarcity of water. So government's focus is also on taking adaptation strategies to manage the water, and for that the government has took several adaptation strategies. Here I had mentioned Jal Shakti Abhiyan, National Aquifer Mapping Project, Bhunir Portal, Flood Watch, India App version 2, Flood Watch, and other state initiative to manage water resources. Here I had mentioned Jal Sanchay Jan Bhagidari initiative. So these are the adaptation strategies. And as I have said, if you make this chart, okay, it won't count it as a word, and that will be more effective. So you can present your idea like that. Now move forward. So here I had mentioned what the adaptation strategies the government has taken in the recent past. That is okay, because you have to support this answer, because in the answer they had asked that is it possible without adaptation? No, it is not possible without these adaptation strategies to achieve the net zero emission by 2070. Okay. Now, India, as I have said, is still dependent on what? The thermal energy. But India is transiting towards the greener source of energy. But again, there are great challenges in front of India towards this energy transition. Even in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 7, when you look at, the India is trying to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. So, focused on energy transition. When you look at a brief history of energy transition, the first phase, when you look at the natural energy, was used by the mankind. So basically, in the 18th century BC, when you look at, the mans are depend on the natural source of energy, the wood, log, etc. Okay, the second phase of industrial energy begins in the late 19th and early 20th century. But when you look at the second phase of industrial revolution begins, okay, again the people depend on the natural source of energy, basically the fossil fuels. So the fossil fuels like coal. So here now, and that started emitting the greenhouse gases. Now, when you look at the third phase of the renewable energy, overpassing the second phase of industrial revolution, 1970, 1990s. Okay, the second phase, here the renewable energy. Now there was a development, okay, towards the various source of energy like nuclear, okay, wind, solar. But these source of energy are at the nascent stage. Now, when you look at the fourth phase, the phase of sustainable development. Now, after the Brundtland commissions, okay, this term has been popularized. And when you look at in the late 90s and 2010, now there was a focus more on renewable source of energy. Okay. Now, the fifth phase, digitalization phase, 2015 to nowadays, the era of fourth industrialization, the era of artificial intelligence. There is a more and more energy demand. And now we have to create balance between the renewable source of energy and non-renewable, because we are moving towards the greater demand of renewable energy. But you can understand now, 1 week back, when you look at, or in the last month, when you look at a case study of the Iberian Peninsula, the Spain and Portugal suffered a setback. In Spain, as you know, the Spain has generated the energy through solar, renewable source of energy. They are dependent on largely the renewable source of energy. But because of the technical glitch, or you can say the grid has failed. Why? because more and more renewable energy has produced in Spain, and Spain free of cost giving energy to the adjacent area of Portugal or the France, okay, and the Italy as well as Morocco. They are giving free of cost energy. Sometimes they are paying the money to purchase the energy even. Why? Because they have surplus energy. Now the problem is that they had developed the grid, but the grid had failed to store the energy, and the grid shutdowns. So what we have to understand, we have to understand the challenges, and we have to learn the lesson from these developed nations also. Okay, so you cannot switch over towards the renewable energy, that having, okay, requirement of different technology based grids we have to develop. And now the India recently is in the nascent stage, try to understand. We cannot switch over. And what is the great challenge here? We wanted energy security. We wanted the renewable source of energy. But one side, what is the problem? The problem is we have to keep in mind our commercial interest also. So when you are talking about energy transition, that is again a strategies of mitigation. So what you have to this when you look at this, okay, Venn diagram, this intersections area, energy transition require balancing between commercial interest, as I have said, and energy security. Because commercial interest focus on profitability of energy investment, market competitiveness, cost efficiency of energy technology, while private sector innovation and scalability and investment return and shareholder values. Okay, now we have to look at this commercial interest. Then and there we can develop the better infrastructure, attract investment. Okay, why any company or any private entity invest in the energy sector if you they won't get the benefit? Other side we have to, okay, secure our energy. So energy security focus on reliable and stable energy supply, energy independence from foreign sources, resilience against supply disruption, strategic reserves, infrastructure, and national policy and regulations. Still we are dependent on the fossil fuels, and for the fossil fuel, especially the petroleum, natural gases, we are importing from the Gulf countries, importing from the Russia, okay, the South American, Caribbean countries, US, but the large export we are importing right now from the Russia and the Gulf countries. Okay, now when you look at, okay, here, what are the challenges towards transition? Despite we have to move towards transition, we had to focus on renewable energy. But what are the challenges? You have to just mention through a flow chart. Okay, what are the challenges for transiting from the non-renewable to renewable source? One is investment, which is required to develop the grid. Okay. Second, the development of battery infrastructure. Okay, scaling up production of component of the renewable source of energy, because still in the technology when you look at we are at the nascent stage. So we have to develop ancillary unit to develop several equipment related to solar, wind, hydro, nuclear. Okay, now access to the critical minerals, again that is a very important aspects. The limited availability of the land in the densely populated area, because we have to set up, we have to develop the lines, electric supply we have to maintain the grid facilities, production units. Okay, so that required the land. We have a limited land resources, we have population pressure, again challenge, and rapidly increasing energy demand from agriculture, infrastructure, industry. We have to create balance. These are the challenges. Now, despite all these challenges, the government is trying hard to move towards the energy transition from non-renewable to the renewable. Now they are also using a updated technology to reduce the greenhouse gas emission through the thermal power plant, the coal-based energy. प्रोडक्शन, उसमें भी कोशिश कर रहे हैं. हाउ? So when you look at the key strategies taken by the government, efficient use of coal. Government has developed certain strategies for the efficient use of coal. For example, supercritical technology, and through which the total capacity of 65,000 to 90 megawatts, 94 units by 2024. Government also adopted ultra supercritical facility 4,240 megawatt 6 unit by 2024, as well as the recent advanced ultra supercritical AUSC technology in coal based power plants. So government has adopted, okay, this supercritical, ultra supercritical and advanced ultra supercritical facility they had developed for the efficient use of coal. Now the government also try to enhance the nuclear energy program in India. We are also running right now the nuclear reactors. They are producing the energy for the domestic supply, but the contribution is less. I will show through the pie chart. And other renewable energy like wind, solar, hydro, OTEC, tidal, etc. But that need huge amount of money. So financial need was there. Technology, we have to just import the technology. So there is a issue of technology sharing. Another, the skilled manpower. Next, the to facilitate this project we need the land. That is another problem. Okay, now so we have to mention here the challenges through these flow charts to save our words. Now when you look at here, I had mentioned the mitigation effort. So I had mentioned adaptation and now the mitigation strategies. So when you look at India successfully established installed electricity generation capacity of 2,13,701 megawatt from the non-fossil fuel sources. But now, because we wanted to achieve net zero emissions by 2070, we have to move towards shift our energy production to through the renewable source of energy. Okay, right now the non-fossil fuels contribute 46.8%. Okay, this is the installed electricity generation capacity. The total capacity as of 30th November 2024, and the goal is to reach 50% by 2030. Now, there has been notable progress in energy generation through non-fossil fuel, including nuclear, hydro, and other renewable sources. And this segment reached 420.8 thousand gigawatt hours in 2022-23. Provisional data is giving the figure 22.8% of the total gross energy generation, out of which when you look at, so coal 46.20%, nuclear 1.8%, other renewable sources 3.50%, hydro 10.30%, wind 10.5, solar 20.6, the gas 5.4, lignite 1.4, and diesel. Okay, I'm talking about natural gas and the diesel. So when you look at, these are the fossil fuels, the diesel, lignite, gas, and the coal when we are talking about. So these are the fossil fuels, non-renewable energy sources, and these are the renewable energy sources. So you can understand now. Now when you look at, so this is the status. Okay, this is the installed electricity generation capacity. Now when you look at the growing energy generation from non-fossil fuel in India. Okay, so if you look at this chart now, okay, so when you look at this color representing different things, okay, this is for the nuclear. When you look at, this is for the hydro, okay, and this is for the other renewable source of energy, and this is the total non-fossil fuels. When you look at the graph from 2013-14 to the 2022-23 provisional data we have, okay, the total non-fossil fuel energy has been grown, okay, with the very fast rate. When you look at the graph, okay, and in which the share of nuclear is again increasing. The share of the hydro is also increasing. When you look at the graph is the trend is increasing trend, and other source of the renewable energy is also increasing. When you look at in terms of gigawatt, when you look at almost 50 gigawatt production of the another source of renewable energy, now it reached almost around more than 150. When you look at, okay, the another source of energy, the hydro, okay, which is almost around 100,000 gigawatt hours, which has been increased almost around 120 to 150. So there is a quite jump. When you look at the nuclear, almost around 20 to 30 gigawatt, which has been increased around 50 gigawatt. So that this graph has been shown. And when you look at the provisional data of 22-23 to the 2013, these are the 5.7% of the energy, the renewable energy sources, other sources except hydro, nuclear, as well as the non-renewable thermal. When you look at the thermal, earlier 79.8, which has been reduced. And when you look at, it was 2.91, what the nuclear, it is right now 2.49. Okay, there is a concerns over nuclear energy. Okay, now when you look at hydro earlier 11.48%, 8.81%. Okay. So this is the growing energy generation from the non-fossil fuels. Okay. And why there is a quantum jump here, 11.52% here in the other renewable sources. Okay. You can look at here. So what you are finding that, okay, with time the India is emphasizing over the renewable energy sources like solar and wind. Okay, you have to understand, except the hydro and the nuclear. So the more thrust is towards the solar, the wind, okay, because the for the nuclear reactors, we need use amount of financial support as well as technological support. Despite we had developed the reactors, okay, the now what are the new initiatives, another mitigation steps? So मैंने आपको बताया कि डेटा क्या कहता है. So data support is required through flow chart. Now when you look at, अब अगर आप देखेंगे न्यू सोलर पावर स्कीम्स, अर्लियर द केवल जो है वो वल्नरेबल ग्रुप थे पहले, अब इसमें ट्राइबल भी आ गया. सो नाउ द स्कीम इज न्यू सोलर पावर स्कीम फॉर ट्राइबल एंड पीवीटीजीज हैबिटेशंस विलेज अंडर पीएम जनमन. ओके, जनजातीय आदिवासी. ओके, अगर आप देखेंगे सो जनमन एंड धरती आभा जनजातीय ग्राम उत्कर्ष अभियान. सो व्हेन यू लुक एट दिस schemes, okay, when you look at प्रधानमंत्री जनजाति आदिवासी न्याय महाअभियान, okay, earlier it contributed only particularly vulnerable tribal group, but now the tribals, other tribal group is also associated with. And what is the, it was revised on the 18th October 2024. And what was the aim to reach to the 1 lakhs village. When you look at, okay, so 1 lakh unelectrified household में electricity provide करना है through means of solar. Okay, so 1 lakh unelectrified household. So here the government target is to reach this household, okay, over almost 63,000 villages where particularly vulnerable tribal group and other tribal groups are residing. तो एक तो ये है schemes for the development of solar park and ultra mega solar project is also run by the government. The प्रधानमंत्री किसान ऊर्जा सुरक्षा एवं उत्थान महाअभियान पीएम कुसुम has been initiated. पीएम सूर्यघर मुफ्त बिजली योजना, Again, it is a very important and flagship program of the government which aims to install the rooftop solar panels. Okay, and rooftop solar panels until 2025. Okay, we had data, and data suggested that almost 7 lakhs household has already installed the rooftop solar panels. And what is the target to achieve 1 crore household. Rooftop solar panel target is 1 crore. Until last figure we have, okay, 7 lakhs household having. Now the government has able to install the solar panel. Another, the government has also come up with the offshore wind energy, the viability gap funding of 7453 crore. And the project under the energy green energy corridor. What is the aim? To develop intra-state transmission system and enhance the grid capability. So government is also focusing on developing the grid capability under the green energy corridor. So these are the new initiative, and certain another initiative existing policy has been updated. जैसे मैंने इसके बारे में कहा कि इसमें पहले particularly vulnerable tribal group थे, but अब इसमें अपडेट कर कर किसको ऐड कर लिया, इसमें ऐड कर लिया other tribal group को. Okay, so that schemes when you look at was introduced in on the 4th January 2024, but मैंने कहा अपडेट किया गया उसको 18th of October 2024, other tribal groups को भी ऐड किया गया. So the government has taken initiative. Now another national bioenergy program which was based on what? Which was based on three basic themes. When you look at what are the three basic themes the government has been uh, uh, planned under this program: waste to energy generation, second, the energy through biomass, and the energy through biogas. So when you look at, the government has tried to develop the energy through these sources. When I am talking about, so there are three main pillar. There are three main pillar of this national bioenergy program. One, waste to energy development; another, the energy development by biomass; another, the biogas projects. Okay, when you look at, and now when you look at the capacity, waste to energy capacity, when you're looking at, okay, it is approximately 249.74 megawatt grid connected capacity we had developed. Okay, megawatt grid connected electricity we had developed. If you wanted, okay, exact figure, 249.74 megawatt. Okay, now grid connected through waste to energy. So no need to give the figure, you have to just mention that what are the mitigation strategies the government has adopted in the recent past. These are the key pillar of this national bioenergy program. Here the crop residue, if you look at the biomass, okay, now the waste, the sewage treatment venue, the municipal waste, okay, the biogas can be developed by the animal residue, okay, the industrial residue and the forest, again these are the source of biomass. Okay, this is the biogas sources, and the government is generating waste to energy by this sewage, municipal waste and industrial residues. Okay, so you have to show it. Now what are the another initiative taken by the government, especially keeping in mind financial regulations? Now I'm going to sum up. Okay, so when you look at here, Financial regulation in the green investment. SEBI introduced new reporting mandates, BSR, okay, BRSR, for the top 1,000 listed companies, mandatory by the financial year 23. Now, SEBI also introduced the regulatory framework for issuance of green debt security by 2070, revamped by 2023 by introducing concept of transition bond. The government also what releases sovereign green bond worth 16,000 crore. RBI put in place the framework for accepting green deposit for regulated entities with effect from 1st June 2023. Wow, why to encourage the green deposit to augment the flow of credit to the green activity? This is the RBI okay steps. Now RBI has also classified bank loan up to 30 crores for borrowers seeking funding for renewable energy project under the priority sector lending to promote the renewable sector. So these are the steps taken at the financial front. Apart from that, we cannot move and achieve our ambitious goal of net zero emission without changing our lifestyle, because we are emitting the greenhouse gases by our lifestyle. When you look at in the developing economy, basically the personal car is a status symbol, and we are emitting the use energy, we are consuming the fossil fuels. Okay, so India, as you know, has introduced lifestyle for environment mission in the COP26 in Glasgow 2021. And what the India stated, India encouraged this mission to adopt lifestyle that are in harmony with nature and environment friendly. When you look at the data, UNFCCC reveals that cutting dairy and meat from our diet can reduce emission by 66%. You cannot imagine. Switching a plant-based diet can reduce individual annual carbon footprint up to 2.1 tons, with a vegan diet up to 1.5 ton for vegetarians. Look at the data. And within India, the goal is for at least 80% of all village and urban local body to become environment friendly by 2028 under this mission. So, what is the, if we are harnessing this mission collectively, when we are talking about, and look at lifestyle change by 13% of the global population can reduce carbon emission by 20%. अगर 13% ग्लोबली लाइफस्टाइल चेंज हो तो 20% रिडक्शन होगा कार्बन का. And finish the food on plate can avoid 90 kgs of annual food waste per person. अगर आप फिनिश करते हैं टेबल पे जो आप वेस्ट कर देते हैं खाना, अगर वो बचाएंगे तो एक पर्सन कितना बचा सकता है? 90 kg. And we can reduce the challenge of hunger. Now when you look at the carpool, if we use the services of carpool, then 7,80,000 rides per day saves, which saves 380 million liter of fuel in India specifically. Okay, and recycling 1 ton of newspaper can avoid 25,000 liter of water wastage. So this is the problem which is created because of lifestyle. Now, how you can sum up your ideas, how you can sum up your answers, as I have said. So, nature-based solutions we have to find out, like afforestation, wasteland conservations, okay, mangroves plantation, agroforestry, carbon smart farmings we have to develop, depend on the climate resilient varieties. And overall, in conclusion, you can write what to accomplish this goal of net zero emission by 2070, we have to require innovative strategy and robust implementation plans designed to confront both the challenges posed by climate change and need for sustainable development to take center. But is it possible in a single day? No. We have to achieve this target in a phased manner. So we have to, okay, design our program in a stepwise. We have to create such a plan which will be targeted, okay, in a phased manner. And multidimensional strategy we have to adopt. I had quoted here in the answers what kind of a strategy we are already taking, where we have to move, and what is way forward. We way forward that we have to build institutional strength, clean energy, efficiency, adaptation. Finance is another challenge, as well as innovation. That is the way forward. If you are able to achieve in the near future, definitely we can achieve our net zero emission target. So this is for the day today. Okay. So thank you very much. You can revise this. This is very important question for this year. Thank you.